Donna Ramone is a zinester living in Salt Lake City, Utah. She's most well known for writing articles for the Razor Cake magazine. She also wrote a zine called Creepy Ephemera, American Christmas, a Pack of Lies. This zine is basically about the history of Christmas and how the tradition started and how it isn't what people think it is. It talks about how Christmas used to be illegal here in the United States. It talks about the commercialism of Christmas. It's a little bit it's like all these reasons of why maybe we should all hate Christmas. But I love Christmas and I love this zine, and I thought it'd be really great to release an episode of this podcast series right before Christmas, talking about a Christmas zine about why Christmas is kind of dumb and stupid. I really hope you enjoy this episode. Let's take a moment and talk about Creepy Ephemera. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Let's Take a Moment. Tonight, we are talking about Creepy Ephemera, which is a zine by Donna Ramone. Donna Ramone writes for Razor Cake, and she actually has 3 different Christmas zines that she's written over the years. But tonight, we're going to be talking about just this one. And I have Liz Mason here with me and Missy Kulik again. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm just curious before we start. I've met Donna and hung out with Donna. Have either of you met Donna before?
Not in person, but we have talked on the phone and emailed.
Donna is the best. In case you're curious, she is
Yeah.
awesome, and I love her. She's great.
Yeah, she's
Um,
great.
this zine, Creepy Ephemera, is all about the American Christmas tradition, and so we thought we would release a video just before Christmas, and try our best to look festive. Let's start with you, Missy. Tell us what this zine is about.
Well, so it's about the history of Christmas told by Donna, um, and how it has changed over the years. So she talks about early America and how it came to America, but then it didn't. So I'm really bad at history, so it kind of felt to me like I hate to compare it to Drunk History because I've never watched that. I understand the premise of it, but it kind of reminded me of what I imagined that to be.
I definitely hear you on the drunk history thing. Um, Although this is like well researched, but it is kind of like a layman's terms of history of like, and then this happened and check it out. Then these guys were like blah blah blah, and then, so it's like a very casual history of Christmas.
That's
Oh,
definitely how I need to consume history is in bite-sized conversational pieces, preferably when drinking. I'm just kidding.
right.
I'm just kidding. But no, I love drunk history, and actually it did remind me of that in like the best possible way. So yeah, Missy, you're definitely onto something there. I love the conversational tone, and the one of the lines that cracked me up was the Bible doesn't mention the celebration of Christmas anywhere because that would just be Johnny the Baptist throwing his friend Jizo a birthday rager.
Right. There's lots of great lines in here about it. Donna is kind of a self-described, a bit of a bah humbug, bit of a Scrooge, a bit of a curmudgeon, a bit of like, she's not really excited to be celebrating Christmas. And I think this came out like 2017. I think what really like the vibe that I get is I just imagine Donna sitting at home and Fox News is doing like one of their annual specials, like War on Christmas. Like the office won't let people put up Christmas trees anymore. Like you'll be fired if you say Merry Christmas. And like all this, like I just see Donna just screaming at her television anytime one of those news segments comes on. And she's like, I'm gonna write a zine and tell you where Christmas came from. It's a bunch of pagan bullshit and advertising and like nonsense. And as someone that grew up Christian and grew up in America, I definitely just assumed Christmas was around like Jesus was born and then he died, and the next year they started celebrating Christmas around the world. Like that's just the feeling that I got growing up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
it is, and but I also eventually got into like punk rock, and so then I was like kind of anti-Christmas for a long time because I'm anti-consumerism and anti-capitalism. And now I'm like in the middle somewhere where I'm not Christian anymore, but I love Christmas, but I don't
Yes.
really love shopping the way most Americans love shopping. So,
Yeah.
but I still love like Christmas shit. I think it's the best. I love putting up lights and all
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, okay, someone who was born Jewish, you don't see me around like Purim being like, get with the spirit, people. I mean, not that I ever even was about Judaism, but then when I married into like a family where they do celebrate Christmas, and I saw how fun it is to decorate a tree and have like this all these little traditions with, and I was like, okay, this is kind of fun. And then some years into my marriage, at some point, I was like, can we get a tree? And my husband was like, what have you done with the woman I married? Like,
that.
what? And now I'm like, wait, vintage holiday gear? How can is that a mid-century modern Christmas tree? Like, and I'm like all over that shit. And I feel like an asshole saying this, but I kind of feel like I've sort of embraced the capitalism of it a little bit, but only in as much of as buying decorations.
Yeah, Missy, I can see it. Your house is well decorated there.
We love it and we love I think I got Raoul into it and like going to the antique shops looking for vintage stuff. And every year it's like we add a little bit more to it. And I will say I love Christmas too. And even as a kid, I remember it was the best because you had off school and except I grew up Roman Catholic, so it was like you had to go to church and do like Christmas Eve Mass and or even on Christmas, and it was just such a drag to do that. But also, this zine hit home for me because I design Christmas cards and greeting cards and like our whole business, the biggest holiday for my job currently is Christmas. And previous to that, I worked in floral industry. So all that was like, here's the vase, here's a mug with all the Christmas stuff. You wouldn't believe how much I wrote Happy Birthday, Jesus to put on products. And so it was interesting to me to see the actual history because, like you were saying, Billy, this was ingrained in us our whole year ran around Christmas, it felt like.
No, I mean, I grew up Lutheran and it was like my family we went to church every single week. And we would kind of make fun because there was always families, you'd see them on Christmas and you'd see them on Easter. But if you're like a bare minimum Christian, like those are the two, you're going to be there on Easter, you're
Yep.
going to be there on Christmas. And I always thought it was kind of weird when I was growing up because I always thought Christmas was like this Christian thing. And then my non-Christian friends would also be celebrating Christmas. I'm like, what do you guys do? Do you go to church? Like, no, we just put up a tree. And like, America definitely has like different types of Christmases running at the same time.
Yeah, I definitely, as someone who worked for 2.5 decades in retail, holidays were the time where, if we were in the red the rest of the year, it was a time that we could get out of the red, and so it was definitely, and I mean, it was actually kind of fun to work around the holidays because people are like excited to be there and like they're excited to buy gifts and then of course more often than not people would be like I came in to buy stuff for my friends, I'm leaving with stuff for me, and it was like weirdly fun, but I think it would be different if I didn't work in like a cool bookstore. I think if I worked somewhere like a big chain, big box store or something, I would be like, hell no, this is.
I think she wrote the article for Razor Cake in 2015, and then they printed it as its own zine in 2017. So that's probably when I got it, like 2017 or 2018. And it's become kind of a tradition with me and Alicia that like every Christmas we like re at some point in the month we read these to each other. And we'll be like decorating the tree, and one of us is like reading about how stupid Christmas is. And it's like it's just the best, and it's become a little tradition for us. I wouldn't say this zine is anti-Christmas, but it's sort of just like all these things I didn't really know about Christmas. And it's just kind of like fun and funny to read.
Also, I didn't know that it was sort of illegal initially.
That
It
blew
was
my
like,
mind.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was like, but that does, I mean, if you think about that sort of initial American celebrate, that's not what religion is for. That's why we left Britain,
right,
you know,
right.
like and if you think about it even more, and you think about that sort of like American sort of work ethic, like no, must work all the time, like I could see that. And yet at the same time, I could also see how it got embraced as later after the merchandising and after the Civil War, when everybody was like, shit sucks, let's party. Like I could kind of also see how, like the way after lockdown, everybody was like, let's party.
You
Like it
want
makes
some,
sense.
yeah, you want something to celebrate after all the hard times. It was always sort of weird, like, because even like I said, growing up as a like Christian, like our family was like very Christian. It was always sort of weird of like, well, we're kind of like worshiping Santa in a way, and you're kind of like the Easter Bunny, like the Easter Bunny, like that's like it's pretty. Even when you're like 10 years old, you're like that's like kind of like pagan witches in a forest, like worshiping nature kind of feel. You know
Right.
what I mean? So that like that is always like weird, and this like does a really good job of explaining of like how society like put like it basically combines like all these different traditions and created like a whole new tradition.
I was gonna say, I mean, it makes right like wreaths. Like you look at a wreath, like, yeah, that's pretty pagan-y. That's pretty
Yeah, it feels
nature-y.
yeah, it feels like a witch made that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm there for it. No
Yep.
complaints there.
Well, so I wondered if there were secret Christmases. Do you think there were secret Christmases when it was banned? Like, okay, come on, everyone. We're
Oh,
gonna
there
do it, but keep it quiet.
yeah, there had to have been there 100%, 100%. Yeah, because so it talks in here about how the early Puritans that came to America, we're talking like 1600s. Like in Boston, it was like illegal to celebrate Christmas because people are drinking and partying and it's like sacrilege. It's like not what, religion is supposed to be about. So it was illegal to like celebrate Christmas. So there definitely had to be like it to me when I was reading that, it felt like oh, like in Germany leading up to the Holocaust, like you had to be a secret Jew. You couldn't like let anyone know that you were, celebrating your religion or whatever. And it was just like, yeah, it had to have been like secret Christmas parties and like people just nodding to each other, like, yeah, I can tell. Merry Christmas. If I wink, that means Merry Christmas, but don't say it out loud.
I mean, I kind of feel like we should bring that back in terms of like Secret Christmas. First of all,
Yeah,
good name for a band. I'm just gonna say it. Number two, I'd like the idea of this like covert party, right?
yeah.
Like there's something that feels very like speakeasy about it. Yeah, like a rave. I guess that we would just call that a Christmas rave, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, follow all these text all these phone numbers and websites or whatever to find the real address of the secret Christmas speakeasy jazz party.
Yeah. Can we talk about wassailing for a minute?
Yes. Oh, okay. I have a so no judgment. Please do not judge or totally judge. Okay, so like back when like steampunk was getting kind of big, my husband and I were like kind of involved in the Chicago scene of that. And we were part of this thing called the Owen Society, which like every month somebody would present like a different sort of like esoteric thing, and that group would also get together. Like it was composed of like a lot of like, like paganish vibe folks. And so they would like go wassailing and they would also have like holiday parties that I mean it kind of felt like an OTO meeting or something. It was like we're gonna go out back and like wassail and like some kind of thing where we stand in a circle and then and I was like I know and
Can
I
you
was
can you
like
explain for those who don't know what wassailing is?
so I mean it's basically like Christmas caroling.
When I looked at wassailing on Wikipedia, it was basically an old tradition where people would go around Christmas caroling either to someone's orchard or to someone's house, and they would bring drinks and like everyone would drink out of the same cup and they'd share drink, but then they were sort of like expecting gifts in return. Like they would expect, like, here, let's all share this, and then now you got to give me whatever, some sort of
I will shut up if you give me a gift.
right. And it reminded, well, so let me read a quote from Donna from the zine because this like was my favorite quote of the whole book. Um, she says a particular offense was wassailing. This is back when it was like Christmas was illegal, like there was no wassailing allowed. So a particular offense was wassailing. That's when groups of dudes barged into places, including the private homes of the rich, demanding drinks, food, and money in exchange for songs. Not unlike most punk bands. That
So
cracked me.
good.
I thought about all the punk bands that played in my living room over the years and how like, man, that band sucked and they still want me to pay them like $40 for being here tonight. Like,
But it also has like trick or treat vibes.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like, 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 give me some candy or I will fuck with you.
right. I went to Mexico once and we were in Mexico City and there's this big square where all the mariachi bands hang out. And dude, it's like a wild scene. And these bands will come up to you and they'll, hey man, you want to hear a song? Want to hear a song? And you're like, sure, I want to hear a song. So they'll play a song and there's a little guy in the corner who writes it down. And then they're like, want to hear another song? That was good, right? I'm like, yeah, I'll hear another. And they keep track of how many songs. And then whenever you're done, they're like, hey man, we played 5 songs. Like you owe us whatever and they expect you to pay them and they find like the drunk people and it felt like this reminded me of that of like man they play all these songs and then you got to pay them afterwards like
It's like when you go out to eat and that they come to your table and you're like, I will pay you to go away. I'm
right.
just trying to eat.
It's funny by the end of the zine it feels like she's sort of coming around a little bit on it like she's kind of rolling her eyes like I'm kind of a miser but whatever like if you're gonna celebrate Christmas, at least just like know what it is, and stop talking about the war on Christmas. Everyone's obviously celebrating Christmas anyway, so at least know a little something about it.
Yeah, well, and then she also mentioned she's like, also the Plymouth Rock is a myth.
Right,
Like, but that's gonna be part 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever.
Like
Like,
add that in at the end. Oh, by
right.
the way.
right.
But I couldn't tell if she liked it from the beginning or not until I reached the end. I'm kind of like, well, maybe, like you said, it does sound like she's turned the corner on Christmas. But you said also she wrote a few different zines, so maybe she is obsessed with Christmas a little bit.
This one is all about letters to Santa and like why we write letters to an imaginary person and how they get answered and like what happens to them. And then this one's about this tradition somewhere in Europe, I think in Sweden, where they build a wooden goat every year and then burn it down. And this zine is crazy. So maybe we'll talk about those next year. But
I
um,
like this.
yeah, I feel like every zinester should read this zine once a year because that's what I do and I love it. It
Okay,
cracks.
I also love the idea that you and Alicia are like reading it to each other while you're decorating a tree, but also that you read it aloud, like it's like this oral tradition. Like,
It kind of is
yeah,
because even though it's factual information and researched, like you said, it has like a conversational tone where it's actually really fun and funny to read out loud. And actually, I had her do like a reading of it. I'll put a link in the description if you want to hear her read from this zine. You can hear her read the whole thing. It's great. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
Bye.